Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Meehan. I'm the Director of Communications for the Northeast Clean Energy Council. Today, I'm speaking about diversity in the climate economy with Lisa Francis. She's a partner at Guidehouse, a global consulting firm heading up go-to-market strategies for e-mobility, renewables, and hydrogen. I got that right, I think.
You did.
So great to have you here today, Lisa.
Thank you. Wonderful to be with you.
All right. And so we have Lisa here. She's also a member of our board. So she's my boss. So I have to be very nice to her. And what we're talking about today is her experience in really shaping the clean energy market that exists today. Lisa came into this business in 1979, coming out of the 1970s with the idea that, hey, there was all new opportunities for women in the workplace, and there were all this new clean energy was going to be part of the mix in our world. And so how did that go?
I'll tell you, well, I mean, I did my thesis at Wesleyan on planning and diversity, alternatives for producing electricity. And that was under, the Carter administration. I was really excited. I got a job at Arthur D. Little, and I was working with other women. So it wasn't the only woman working at the time with this company, a consulting firm. And our very first project was this piece of work right here, which was demonstrating renewable energy technologies, lessons learned from the federal solar experience. And this was looking at distributed energy renewable technologies, the demonstration programs from 1974 to 1979. It was the first of its kind to have a demonstration program of these distributed assets. The sad thing that I quickly came to realize is politics has a huge influence, because even though we spent a year on this, it never got published. So that was my first experience in the real world of the importance of politics coming in. And unfortunately with that, there was a lot of money in the Carter administration. When I first came in, they had the Solar Energy Research Institute, which is now NREL, and that money dried up with the new administration. So I actually had to struggle a bit to stay alive in consulting with renewables and then doing energy efficiency. So that was my sort of first experience coming in. And because a lot of the other women I was working with left, we were doing policy work and market work, and some of that work dried up when some of the funds dried up.
Okay, so it's you and a lot of guys. So how did you navigate that?
Well, I'm going to show you pictures. So I started doing energy efficiency. I don't know if you can see this, but there I am. This is now in 1995, where we were helping the Navy with their energy vision off. And then they took us and a bunch of folks from Honeywell and Johnson Controls, and we were leading an energy vision on how they can get more involved with energy efficiency. So I kind of got more involved in energy efficiency, but ended up working mainly with primarily men in these environments. The great thing is about this project, I got catapulted off the coast of Puerto Rico on the US Enterprise. And it was a really fascinating experience. So even though I was certainly in the minority and I was just trying to keep abreast, I still found it a fascinating experience to be getting experience working on these different projects. I was working with mechanical engineers, and we would go into Texas Instruments, and they would show us these polysilicon beads and how they would make them spheral solar cells. And then they were trying to make a flexible panel at the time. So I'd go into the manufacturing facilities and I'd see different things like this as well, which is a Prism Solar, where they were trying to make windows. And these are concentrators here, and they would try to redirect the light onto the panel. So, even though I was in the minority, I'd go to conferences, and it wasn't like today where there's 22,000 people. There was maybe 200, and there were maybe 5% women at best at these conferences. So it was an experience, it was a challenge, but I think the bigger challenge was in the 80s and 90s, because the funding had dried up. It wasn't so much being a woman in the field as it was being involved in renewable energy. I was trying to juggle both. And, I think back then you were viewed as a tree hugger. It wasn't mainstream. I thought it was going to be mainstream, but it didn't get there. It kind of dried up. And so that's kind of where I landed. And, I think to keep alive, I enjoyed working in at this point, it was primarily male dominated environment that I began working in, both with clients and even at Navigant and Arthur D. Little at the beginning. But then I grew my own group, right? I led their renewable distributed energy group at Navigant, and I made sure it was a diverse team that was part of the team.
Well, that's probably the best practice is the, if you want to have, diversity, be the diversity you want to have. So.
Well, I do think that is an important message for women too, because there was I was passionate about it and I wanted to do it, and I just sort of found a way to make it happen. Others left the firm. I decided, okay, to stay alive, the only way I'm going to do this, I have to do energy efficiency work with renewable energy, and I'm going to start making it happen. I think my very first project when Navigant bought out Arthur D. Little was to do a big multi-client, bring all these companies together and do a 101 on renewables, what they are. And it was great. It got the brand out. It allowed me to grow the business. It was a big project. And, I think it's once you believe in something and following your passion makes a difference.
How did you convince people it was okay to hug trees?
I think a few of the clients were just questioning it. I think, there because it had been popular and because there was some slow market entry, people saw some business value that if the incentives came back, because it really was a lot about incentives back then, that there could be huge market potential and people were looking for ways to diversify. I think this project originally was a company, but they were trying to sell it to a big glass manufacturer. And I can't say the name of the company, but I had the opportunity with working with a number of glass companies like Shot Glass, where I went over to Japan and Europe and worked with BP on their Beyond Petroleum strategy. So, you get to work on these projects and people were just trying to see, is this a way we could diversify, right? And so there was a business opportunity there. At least they were testing it. John Deere, we worked with them to help them get into the wind business. People they thought this could be the next big wave. And so they thought it was a tree hugger thing, but they had potential that maybe it could be something more.
And let's skip forward now to today. So you talked about there being, 5% women at conferences you go to back in the day, and that number vastly different now. What given your perspective, do you think about where we're standing now in terms of both the accessibility of the workplace for everyone and for the strength of the business?
It's totally different now. I mean, it's exciting. I had the same excitement, in 1979 and 1980 when I first got in, but I'm hoping and praying it's here to stay. We kind of unfortunately went through this lull period where the market really didn't happen. But now it feels completely different. I think, but again, it's being stimulated by the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure law. So these two policy initiatives that have just been implemented are also creating a huge wave of excitement in the space. So I do think I'm seeing, the conferences are enormous still now, but it's now the private sector is very much engaged in this. You've got big corporations, Microsoft and Apple and Facebook, and also you've got the big car companies now involved because of e-mobility and electrification. So, all the companies like Ford and GM and Toyota, everybody's exploring this space, and it's all coming together. I think it's a fascinating time. I kind of wished my career early on had this kind of momentum, to be honest with you. That's why I can't exit. I should be exiting, right? I'm at the point, you can do the math, right? I started in 79, so I should be thinking about my exit strategy, but it's such an exciting time to be in this space. And the opportunities are enormous for women. Like when I was in this field, there were never women CEOs at utilities. There were never women CEOs that were heading some of these distributed energy companies. And that's there now. So I'm excited about the opportunities for women in this space.
And you're not just excited. I mean, you're trying to help foster those opportunities too, correct?
I sit on a number. I was an ambassador for 9 years with the DOE 3CE program, and I'm also a mentor with the Northeast Women in Energy and the Environment, mentoring women. Because I do think that's important, right? You have to create opportunities for women. So the first one, the DOE program with Stanford and MIT and Texas A&M is about giving grants or support for women in their mid-career that have real potential. And NUI is about just mentoring women and helping them come together to understand some of the challenges and where the opportunities are. And even NECC, I think, is also trying to do the same thing for their member base as well. So I think that's important. I think it's really critical for women who are in a position of having been through it to share some of their lessons learned with other women that could be helpful in helping them promote and move ahead in their career.
Okay. And I love that you can't leave now because it's just getting really good. So that's that's a great place to stop it. Lisa Francis of Guidehouse, thank you so much taking the time with us. Thank you so much for making a lot of this happen. It's you won't take credit for it, but I'm going to give it some of it to you because for those who don't know, she really is one of the people who has been instrumental in making this space grow. So
Well, Mike,
thank
thank
you
you very much.
All right. And thank you to everybody for taking part in this series. We'll have more installments coming later, and post, like, and share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.